Hello, listeners. We are your co-hosts, Janine Bailey and Marie Quigley, for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart, and soul.
Hello and welcome to Empower World, the Coaching and Leadership Podcast. My name is Marie Quigley, nearly forgot my surname, and I'm with the lovely Janine Bailey this morning, my time, and this evening, your time, Janine.
Yes, it's getting a bit late now, but I am delighted to be here because it's tricky and challenging to get this time with you these days. So I'm very happy to be here.
Great. And we've had a little pre-conversation about what would be useful for our listeners perhaps to think about, our coaches or our aspiring coaches to think about. One of the things that might come up in our supervision is, how do we win clients? How do we get clients to say yes to us when we've got the opportunity to sit in front of them? And so we thought, yeah, that's a great topic because inside the chemistry session, discovery session, intake session, it's got so many different names for different people. So many things can happen that can support or not support you being chosen. And I don't want it to sound like it's a rejection or a choosing, but sometimes it can feel like that. We can think, I wonder what I'm doing that I'm not the one being requested to coach this person. So I thought it would be great to have a conversation about that.
Yes, absolutely, Marie. And I find that in some of my groups that I supervise, that's often, and I'm thinking of one group that is a coaching platform. And often what the coaches will bring in is those 30-minute discovery or intake chemistry, whatever you might call it, as you say, that in 30 minutes, it's often a challenge to be able to create that connection to therefore, or to be able to showcase their work to be able to be selected. And sometimes they feel that the connection they have made with the potential client has been incredible. It's been strong. And then they find that they're not chosen. So it often comes in as a supervisory subject.
And I have had times where I've been in the mix for coaching and I haven't been chosen. And I'm sure you've had that experience, Janine, too. Yeah. So we question that, or we think, I have a belief that the client will get the right coach that they need at that time. And sometimes the work we do might be too profound. It might be too deep for the client to actually want to have that type of coaching. And they might be looking for something a little bit safer, a little bit more practical. Some coaches use mentoring. I don't use mentoring. You don't use mentoring, Janine, when we're coaching. But that safety that somebody's going to give them advice may feel like, oh, actually, that's the coach I want because they've got expertise I need. And of course, that isn't coaching at all. So they're not going to get an experience of coaching in the way we think of coaching.
Exactly. So as you say, Marie, there are different reasons that potential clients, reflective partners, perhaps might not choose us. And I have a belief that I will attract the right people that I'm meant to work with. And that is perfect for me. I know some other coaches might have a different view about that. I'm noticing you nodding there, Marie.
I'm just thinking at the different stages of my business development, Janine. Perhaps early on when I wanted clients, it would be like, oh gosh, how come I didn't get that? But now in the stage that you and I are, we're like, well, we didn't get it or we did get it for good reason. So I think the development of your practice is hard because we want to coach everybody when we're starting off because we have to put food on the table. We're running a business often. So there is an energy perhaps that we will bring when we want to win the client that might actually put the client off. Who knows? So we've got to think about that too.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I really believe our unconscious stuff, beliefs, could potentially also impact the way that we interact with our clients. Those unconscious messages that could be sent to our clients. So that's something just to be aware of, and potentially is an opportunity for our own development to support us with our mindset and beliefs. So that is one element to how we can show up and how we can attract clients into our practice.
Certainly is. And we also have to remember that maybe the client isn't ready for certain things. So are we explaining what coaching is in a way that they understand it? And are we giving them an experience of coaching that's going to help them understand if they choose you, what the work will be like when you choose to partner together? Now, I know, as you mentioned, Janine, 30 minutes is not a long time for a connection meeting to happen so that you understand. So there's so many things that we're thinking about when we're putting in our processes for a chemistry session. What do you think about that, Janine? What would you say is essential to work in a chemistry session?
Yes, I really believe it's a number of things. It's about being ready for the session. So being prepared to be with the person that we're meeting, to have that beautiful open mindset that anything potentially is possible, and to trust the process, and to really, and I think not a lot, I'm making this up. Potentially many coaches might be daunted by the process of that first initial meeting to see if you're a good match, if you want to work together. And so I think that's also important, that you bring an energy of curiosity, potentially joy of meeting this person. And of course, if the person is not in a great place, we need to obviously adjust. But it's about authenticity and bringing our authentic self, but ensuring that we're coming into this space in a place of opportunity, openness. There's possibilities. Not from a place of, and I'm sorry to use these words, not from a place of lack and scarcity. It's coming from a place of opportunity. So for me, that's important. And then coming in with our beautiful coaching skills of listening deeply, building trust and rapport, bringing in empathy, being that reflective mirror, holding that up, asking questions that support and challenge and acknowledge the person that we're with. I know, Marie, you mentioned contracting earlier, so you might want to say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking, first of all, Janine, I really appreciate what you shared there, because for me, that means it's not about us, it's about the other person. And, I learned a big lesson 20 years ago when I passed out on stage in front of 300 people because I thought it was about me and my fears overcame me. And I learned that the chemistry session is not about me. So if my focus is on me and me performing, then I'm probably not going to get the job. But if my focus is on my client and challenging from the get-go, because that's how I like to work, challenging as well as listening and deep connection and empathy, and to be able to challenge in the client's thinking in a chemistry session of 30 seconds, we have to contract for that. So I would do some contracting around, look, you're going to get an experience of how I work today. And some of my questions may be challenging. Are you okay with that? And he or she, they might say, no, I'm not quite ready for challenge today. Okay, so what do you need? So that there's kind of a mini contracting happens so that you can understand what the client needs and how far you can go to support them. I've just done a chemistry session with a CEO, and it was magnificent, even though I say so myself. And I was the third choice, as in he'd had two other experiences, and I was the third one. And I invited him to go away and think about it. And he said, no, I already know. I want to work with you because I haven't had a conversation like this before. It hasn't touched the depths. It hasn't challenged my thinking in the way these last 30 minutes have. And now I know that that's the type of coaching I want. Now, had it been somebody else, my challenge might have been too much for them. And that's okay if they're not ready for that type of thing. Absolutely, there's going to be a better coach for them to choose. So I think that's important as well, understanding what is the client looking for in this work we're doing and contracting around how you're going to be with them. Does that make sense, Janine?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So it is important to bring in that contracting piece. And of course, it's not going to be the sort of contracting that we do when we are actually working with our client. It's been agreed that we work together, but it's enough to be able to provide that experience as you shared, provide an experience of how you work. And I believe it's really important that we do stretch and challenge our prospective client in that session, if that's what you do as coaches, which we trust you do, because it is all about supporting our clients to expand their comfort zone, essentially, and their ways of thinking, doing, and being. And so we always say, don't we, that coaching is not about it's not about being nice and building friendships. It's about support and challenge.
Yeah. You've taken the word out of my mouth, actually. Yeah.
Uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
That really, because if we're not uncomfortable, then we're not learning, we're not expanding. We're not. Growth is all about being uncomfortable, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Not always, but most of the time, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I don't go into the chemistry session wanting to be liked. I go into the coaching session thinking about my client and what is it they need to support their thinking or to support their perspective, or what is it that I'm noticing at a deeper level that my body might be giving me information about, that the system might be giving me information about, that they need right now. So my focus is fully on them, with and to be able to challenge them with deep compassion, so that they feel the security and trust, so they've got the psychological safety to know that from the get-go, we can do this work, we can do this brave work. And that's why I think it feels different when you're with a coach who is able to be fully present, contract around how they work, and do the work, because 30 minutes is not a lot of time to do that, so it does take practice.
Yes, absolutely. So, Marie, for the coaches that are listening to this and potentially very curious, the approach that you might take when you first meet a client for the first time who perhaps hasn't experienced coaching, what would you recommend as a process, and obviously a broad process, because every conversation will be different.
That's so true. And so this is a general outline that's coming into my awareness, because we do tailor make things to each client. But first of all, I think as professionals, we need to take charge of ourselves as professionals. So if I'm going into a lawyer's office for the first time, I want to feel safe and understand what the role of this person is going to be. I think it's the same for coaches. It's the same for if I went to a doctor or someone else. I want to know that they know their practice, that they are solid in their work. And so for me, it's an energy of taking charge of leading in the chemistry session, leading them through what coaching is and what it isn't, and how you will work. So it starts off as almost a process of helping the client understand what this thing called coaching is. Understanding why on earth they've come to coaching in the first place. Do they want to be here or not? And then finding out, would they like an experience with you, even if it's 5 minutes, a 5-minute experience of what it might be like if you were coaching with them. And if you are going to challenge them, that you contract for that you talk about that, and you ask permission. And then for me, it's always a no obligation, because I don't want to force anybody to work with me if I'm not right for them, because it won't work. So having the courage also as a coach to say, you're not the right client for me, but I know that somebody else will be there for you. If I'm not right for you, somebody else is definitely right for you. So having a belief that you don't need to take this client really helps win clients, I think. Because we go in with an intention of doing great work, but also letting go that they might not be right for us. I'm not sure if that is enough information on how to turn up to a chemistry session, Janine. Am I missing anything?
Well, I was going to reflect that sounds like an empowering, powerful approach, in that you're taking that pressure off yourself, and you're going in intentional, and you have a light process that you perhaps will follow, or it's also listening to the client and responding to potential client, responding to what they share, because of the skills that you've developed as a coach. And again, taking that pressure off self and the client to make a choice, so that it unfolds as it's meant to.
Yeah. And there's always great learning when you win a client or when you don't win a client. So it's also, it's great that the coaches are bringing this to supervision, because it's the right place to talk about this. Because who we are is how we coach, but who we are is also how we turn up to chemistry sessions. But if we make it about us, then perhaps we're missing something. If we make it about the client, use the client's language, move in the client's energy, use the client's body to connect in trust and rapport, like we've all learnt to in our coach training, then just perhaps the difference of you will support them to think, oh, you know what, that's what I want, something different. Even though you've built this trust and rapport that's similar, but you might just be the difference that makes the difference by turning up authentically.
Beautifully articulated. Yeah. Coaches, we hope and trust that you have gained some insights and wisdom from this podcast today, which, as we've shared at the beginning, we know that this is a challenge for many coaches. It does come in to supervision quite often. So if that is what you've been experiencing, you're definitely not alone. You're definitely not alone. And as Marie has shared, it's a wonderful opportunity to get curious about, how am I showing up as a coach? What perhaps is in my field that might be getting in the way? of course, knowing that, there's a lot of coaches out there, and we want all of our coaches to get work and succeed. But of course, we also want to experience that for ourselves. So thank you, Marie, for sharing your insights. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we sign out today?
I think there are other things, Janine, that we could talk about, but perhaps we'll leave that to another podcast because, it's a big topic, I think, this, and maybe a series of questions around this might be useful. So, coaches, if you do have questions for us, share in the wherever you can share the questions, write into us, let us know, and we can do a series looking at the questions that you might have about these chemistry discovery intake sessions, whatever you want to call them, because of course we need to get better at them if we want to run a successful business.
Yeah, absolutely, Marie. And I look forward to continuing the conversation in service of our listeners and coaches and leaders. Thank you, Marie. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to somehow connecting with you in the future in whatever shape or form.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website www.empower-world.com and on our social media networks Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.